Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of the participants. Welcome to C20 Environment, Climate Justice and Energy Transition Working Group webinar with the theme of promoting partnerships in energy transitions. So nice to see all of you tonight or today in this event. My name is Arti from Humanist and Social Innovation Foundations, or Yayasan Hifos. And I will be your moderator for our discussion tonight. So as the backgrounds, this event is organized by C20 Environment, Climate Justice and Energy Transition Working Group, where C20 is one of the stakeholder engagement mechanism within G20 architecture. And yeah, some people often ask whether the G20 is really listened to us. Yeah, maybe yes. Yeah, I'm not sure, but however, as civil society, I think we used to this uphill task, and we always will continue to do the dialogue and engagement whenever we have a chance to raise our voices. And at every change of that, we hope that G20 will actually listen to the C20 with all of our limitations for trying to amplify the voices of civil society and community that affected, especially by climate crisis. So yeah, I think we could just start, and waiting for the participant is still in the process to entering the rooms. As the backgrounds, while we're waiting, maybe we could talk about where we have been through multiple crises for the past years. And we we are still in the pandemic, and the effect of the climate crisis is already in front of our eyes. We could see for the past weeks, the record height of temperature have wrecked around the world for the past weeks. And yeah, so we believe the government leadership that is responsible and accountable to its people is very critical now, and they should and will listen to its people, including us. This event will bring a very interesting discussions tonight, inviting representatives from G20 Troika country, which consists of the previous, current, and the incoming presidencies, which are, if you could see in here, from Italy, Indonesia, and India. And yeah, we believe also the partnership between this Troika member is very critical to ensure consistency and continuity of the G20's agenda. So yeah, let's hear and hope these engagements not will be the last for the Troika engagement. There will be many more engagement in the upcoming meeting until the G20 summit at November. So yeah, I would like to say hi first to our speakers in here. Maybe the first one, I would like to say hi to Teresa from Italian Climate Network. Hello, Teresa.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hello, how are you? Really
fine,
nice to have you today. Yeah. And also the second one, we also have in here Kavin Kumar from Youth for Green Hydrogen India. Hi, Kavin.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Hi, nice to meet you. And also we have from Indonesia, Rahmat Maulana Sidik from Indonesia for Global Justice. Hello, Maulana.
Hi, Mbak Arti and everyone.
Yeah, and also we have in here Silas Chingal from Youth of Indonesia Foundations. Hello, Silas.
Selamat malam, Arti.
Selamat malam. Thank you for joining us today in here. So all of the people that I say hi and mention here is also part of the C20 Environment, Climate Justice and Energy Transition Working Group. So this is also part of the collaborations within this working group. And last but not least, I want to say hello also to our special guests, We have in here Hawa Diallo as Chief of the Civil Society Unit at Global Communication Department of United Nations. Hello, Hawa.
Hi, Auntie. Thanks for such a warm welcome. So happy to be with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you also to be here, Hawa. So thank you for all of the speakers and also all of the participants that are joining here today. I know we live in very different time differences, but it's really glad we have this online connection now, so we could connect to each other. So as per our theme of our discussion today, promoting partnerships in energy transitions, it came from the background where we see that the threat of the climate change is gaining more visibility from time to time. And yeah, we could see that we can no longer be unaware of where our energy comes from, as the global energy sector contributes to almost 40% of the CO2 emissions on the world. And transition to renewable and clean energy is inevitable in that collective effort to mitigate the impact of climate change itself. And currently, due to the rising demand as part of the effort in accelerating energy transitions, the cost of generating renewable energy has started to decrease, and many governments in developing countries are also starting to mainstream the use of renewable energy for the public. And with the population growth projected to reach around almost 8.5 billion people in 2050, with developing countries as the center of growth, energy demand will also increase and more advanced technology are needed to ensure that transition to renewable energy could bring reliable and secure energy access for all. However, it's also very important for us to think also on how our global economy works and how the current system of our current economy now brought us to the state of this climate crisis. And in addition, when pandemic also show us the broken system that we live now. Therefore, for these energy transitions, we need to make sure that it is done and in line with the principle of justice, sustainable, fair, and inclusive, and continue respecting the rights of the people. And one of the ways to achieve the objectives is by making sure the involvement of community that affected by transitions and also the civil society in the decision and supporting the local initiatives in developing clean and renewable energy technology. Therefore, that's why we put the very strong focus on partnership today or tonight to discuss about this that uphold the principle of inclusivity and also intergenerational justice is very critical to help achieve the climate target through energy transitions. And today we will hear various perspectives from different countries on how we could have a just energy transition and how partnership could foster for more sustainable, fair, just, and inclusive energy transitions. And I believe in here we have a various background of panels, intergenerational, international, and I personally really can't wait to hear more from our panelists and speakers today. So for the one who just joined the sessions, welcome again. And please make sure you could also introduce yourself in the chat box from which organizations or which country you are joining. So we know that we are still connected, even though it's still through online platform. And also along the sessions, for those of you who have questions or remarks for the speakers, you are very welcome to write that in the chat box, or later on in the questions and answer session, you could also use the raise hand features. So yeah, let's just start these discussions today. Now we will hear from Hawa Diallo first, as the Chief of the Civil Society Unit at the Global Communication Department, United Nations. Hi, Hawa. I know you will talk more about intergenerational partnerships. So very looking forward to that. Hawa, the floor is yours.
Wow. So this is what it means to be the special guest. I'm busy still trying to post on the event on social media and to get everybody in my network connected. And here I am speaking first. So honestly, I'm very honored to be given this privilege. It means a lot to me to really be called into these types of spaces where I know young people and like-minded people are talking about innovation, talking about how they're going to be doing things better. But for me, what's most important is I know the people who are in these groups are actually doing something on the ground and making impact. So thank you very much for having me. And with that, I send a really big hello to everybody from around the world and to really ask you to continue doing the awesome and impactful work that you do. So I'm from the United Nations Civil Society Unit, and that is located, as you see from my title, in the Department of Global Communications. So the United Nations in general takes working with civil society, especially civil society that is being championed by young people, very seriously. For me, it's a cornerstone of the work that I do and the passion that feeds me. That's because really civil society has an important place in our societies. It has an important position in the development dialogue of international bodies um, like the United Nations. And it provides really an opportunity for people like me and you to bring communities together for collective action, pretty much like what the UN does in terms of its work and the work of maintaining peace and security. So civil society really plays that crucial role in any healthy democracy and offers a space where people can, as I said, come together around common interests and common goals. And it means to really challenge the status quo or to challenge what is not working. That's the one thing that I tell people, especially young people that I work with. Whenever you see something, you need to call it out. You need to make us accountable, whether it's the international organization, whether it's the government, whether it's even within your own family. These are really the ways in which we improve systems. And again, the other thing I tell people is that civil society builds bridges among citizens and authorities. And young people are championing this. But again, as Ati says, you can't do this alone. It has to be done in an intergenerational way, because there are people that have come before you who are still active, who have experienced these things time and time again, who have laid the foundation for you. For me, I always feel as if I'm walking on the shoulders of ancestors, on the shoulders of those who have come forth and laid the foundation for us. So even for me as an older person, I rely on somebody like my mom. I'm 58, my mom is 87. There's not a thing I don't do, even in my United Nations work, that I don't go and sit on my mom's bed and I say, Mommy, this is what I'm planning. What do you think? As a matter of fact, I just came from upstairs to get my headphones and I stopped by her room. I said, oh, by the way, I'm speaking at this event. I was brought here by my good friends in Youth of India. And I said, what message should I tell them? What should I say? I mean, these are things that I do. So knowing that intergenerational relationships and intergenerational partnerships should be at the core of everything that we're doing. Now, I think, again, our societies are formed really by the free will of individuals, again, who want to solve the difficult common problems. You're mentioning the energy transition, climate justice. The purpose that they have, as you've seen, with the work that you're doing, is to mobilize everybody to participate and to promote the common good in very important frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals. Here again, I have to highlight the work that Youth of India is doing, because I give an example where, again, one individual cannot do it alone. I had the opportunity to visit them along in India, along with another entity I worked with, 1M1B. But Youth of India, I know, started mobilizing this work around green energy, which I have to admit, as an individual, I wasn't really familiar with. I have been learning more about this and how important it is through the work of Youth of India. And I remember Sailesh, I know he's going to speak later, talking about this initiative. And I'm like, oh my God, what is he talking about? They don't have the people power. And they started with like 2 or 3 people. And I'm just amazed how the power of people, the power and the energy and passion of civil society, especially with young people in the lead, has resulted to over 70 countries now signing up in this green hydrogen initiative. And I think it's fantastic. And if you're ever thinking, well, what can civil society do? I mean, is it just a bunch of people getting together, going to meetings? Look at what has happened with COVID-19. I know my office in the Department of Global Communications, we did several surveys to highlight the work that civil society is doing to address the pandemic and COVID-19. And we were just amazed in all the local level action that is taking place. And in many places, these entities, civil society was supporting organizations like the United Nations to get the word out, to find out who's been affected, and to meet the needs where sometimes governments and international organizations can't go. So for me, civil society is essential. And again, what is civil society? For me, it means all of us as individuals, but it especially means entities that are not associated with governments, non-state government actors who have no political affiliation or affinity, who have a trust at the local level. You talk about faith leaders who can go into Somalia or Sudan or Afghanistan and speak to people, churches, cultural institutions who have no sides and who are neutral, and again, who people really trust. And I have to say, getting the job done. So again, from what I'm saying, civil society plays multiple roles in the important work that we're doing, from being a source of information to citizens and governments, to monitoring even government policy and action, and making people accountable. And one thing that I tell civil society is that I say we, because I see myself also as that, landscape. We also need to be accountable in the work that we're doing and in the things that we're seeing as well. And advocacy for me that civil society does is so important, coming from the Department of Global Communications, because this is the way we get the message across. I know that we have relied on civil society so much, not only to deliver services, but to deliver the message to the most remote areas. I know there are people here who are going to be talking about from Tamil Nadu and people who are in areas that I hope to visit soon, Siguri, if I'm saying that properly. But your work takes this message of the United Nations to them directly. And the work, I think, of the G20 also, because sometimes I'm amazed when I go on a speaking engagement and so many people are not aware of the UN. Today, I got a tweet from one of the other youth networks I work on, the International Youth Conference, where a young person somewhere in the continent in Africa went to the most remote area, village, holding up a sign of the Sustainable Development Goals and climate action, informing people, not through social media, not through Instagram, but through a placard where he has written the information. Those people would never be able to be connected on a smartphone. So I think that is something for me that is so vital and so important in terms of the work that civil society does. Now, I always am calling on the United Nations to do more, but calling on the G20 to also do more, calling on other international organizations who are involved with young people in civil society to put our money where our mouth is. Is that what you say in the US? We need to invest, we need to support, whether it's financially, whether it's human resources, so that the awesome work and important and impactful work that entities or structures like C20 are doing carries on. Thank you so much. I've spoken way too long, but I'm just so passionate and so just really always in awe of the work that young people are doing, but reminding you that we have to do it in an intergenerational way. I make myself available, and there's so many people like me who are ready, willing to work with you on this journey. Keep on the good work. La luta continua, and I hope to see you on the ground. Thank you so much for having me. Over to you, Ati.
Thank you, Hawa, for your work and for always championing the importance of the intergenerational conversations and dialogue. And I think the message is very strong, where intergenerational partnership should be the core for everything what we're doing, and where the civil society, especially the activity that led by the young peoples, is very critical in these moments, and many local level actions is also very critical to meet the needs, the actual needs of the people on the community itself. So we need to support that. The government also need to support the local level actions and also the civil society's work. So I also welcome for all of the participants to give the feedbacks or questions or remarks, or just say greeting to Hawa on the chat box, or if you want to share about your work, so everybody in here also could see, even though also it's only in the chat box. And for the next speakers, we have together with us today Teresa Guevre from Italian Climate Network. So she is a climate advocate and also part of the delegations at COP26 with the Italian Climate Network in here. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Arti. Thank you. Thank you for introducing me.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so yeah, we would like really keen to hear from you what is the importance of the youth participation in the renewable energy sector, Teresa, and also what is your hope or message maybe towards HAWA, towards the government leaders, towards among civil society. So yeah, the floor is yours, Teresa.
Thank you, Arti. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And I would also like to thank the C20 Environment, Climate Justice and Energy Transition Working Group for organizing this event and for inviting me to speak. My name is Teresa. I'm part of the advocacy team of Italian Climate Network and also member of the C20 Working Group. And I have the chance, thanks to the working group, to contribute to our policy recommendations for G20 governments. And hopefully they are not going to ignore them, I'm not sure, but. And also my association, Italian Climate Network, strives to improve public knowledge about climate issues, and particularly young people. So, and also advocates for youth involvement in social innovation. And I think this ties in with our speech, and also with the topic I'm going to discuss today, which is how to encourage youth participation, so intergenerational participation in the renewable energy sector. So I think someone is going to share the slides for me. I'm not sure if there are technical issues with the.
Let's wait. I think they are
sure.
in the process of sharing the slides.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll wait. Fine.
The slide is still on the way.
No, it's fine. Okay.
Okay.
They're here.
Now.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, first we might ask ourselves why would we want to encourage youth participation in the sector? I mean, why should we focus on young people? Why are they important, as Abba was mentioning? So first reason, their number, of course. Indeed, there are 1.8 billion people between 15 and 29 years old in the world. They represent a large share of the global population, so it's clear that they must be involved in decision making. Wait, let me check who this is.
I think you can continue. I think it has been, the participant has been removed. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Okay, no, it's fine. This is the thrill of going live. And so, as I was saying, beside their side, basically, they also have a right, young people, to be involved in shaping their own future. This is especially true when it comes to solving the multiple economic, environmental, and energy crises that we are facing today, as the young people will bear the brunt of it. So it's personal, let's say. And because of this, young people are also primed to be an innovative force for the energy transition. They can bring new ideas and a fresh perspective. And indeed, they are the country's most innovative population already today, also in the making. So actions and initiatives led by young people can trigger the necessary momentum for scaling energy access to local innovation. And so youth-led social innovations have a significant transformative potential to solve both local and global problems. So we can see that there is a very good reason to involve young people. But the next question is, so why the renewable energy sector? Why is it so important? So recent global crisis, namely we know the conflict in Ukraine or the global energy crisis, have shown more than ever that transitioning to renewable energies is the way forward if we want to achieve resilient and equitable economies. Renewables indeed are a key solution towards energy security, and also one that empowers local communities, placing them on the center. And that's because decentralized energy systems allow for generation and distribution of clean electricity, so near end user communities. So they empower local communities. And this means that with adequate policy and financial support, the sector is a solution to both universal energy access and youth employment in developing, at least developed countries. So it's a solution to one of our greatest challenge we face today. And indeed, the sector has a huge potential to tap into, because as we can see, it's expected to create more than 42 million jobs by 2050. And so the youth, as we said, have a key role to play. They can create social innovations, and they can help enable decentralized, digitalized, and decarbonized energy systems. And there's also, I mean, it's not just their potential, but there's also a growing demand for young people to pursue renewable energy careers. So everything is there in place, but something is missing, because more needs to be done to support them. And as you were saying before, like initiatives usually only pay lip service to youth participation, as if it's just a box to tick, a diversity box to tick. But we need actually real and tangible support. So what is it, this support in practical terms? So we can say that the sector needs to offer more meaningful support throughout the young people's whole career trajectory. And this support includes, first of all, money. So structured financial support for youth-led initiatives like startups. And this can be done by, for instance, establishing equitable funding mechanisms or investing in platforms that offer an inclusive range of support, such as accelerators and incubators. And then we also miss capacity building opportunities, for instance, for technical and entrepreneurial skills, including networking and mentoring opportunities. And this could, for instance, could build on the ACE program, on the Paris Agreement's Action for Climate Empowerment, or other similar programs and projects. And then we also need partnerships between schools, vocational training institutions, academia, and private sector to ensure that academic skills are not just theory, but are actually aligned with the needs of the future green labor market. And then we need instruments to make access to entry-level jobs and also career advancement opportunities easier, and especially more transparent for young people. And then finally, which is very important, everything should be done by keeping inclusion and equity in mind to ensure accessibility to students from all backgrounds, especially those coming from vulnerable and underrepresented communities. For instance, this support could be financial, of course, through stipends or scholarships. So basically, this is what we need, and still we have a long way to go, I think. But there are some promising initiatives. We're going to later to our other speakers will mention promising initiatives in their countries. But now I think I'm going to focus to have a more general global focus on this. So I think these initiatives put these principles into practice. For instance, the first one, it's student energy, and it's the world's largest youth-led energy transition group. It offers a fellowship for a 10-month virtual energy education program, and also an entrepreneurship incubator for youth in developing economies. And besides, the organization last year launched the Solutions Movement, which is a UN Energy Compact. So the UN compacts are voluntary commitments, as I think you know, from different stakeholders. And in this case, the organization is partnered with the government of Denmark. And they hope to encourage more donors to come in, which is always the main problem. And the movement is a global effort to directly fund and support the launch of 10,000 youth-led clean energy projects around the world, and this by 2030. And since its launch, it has managed to fund more than 400 clean energy projects and provided more than $3 million in direct to youth energy funding, which is another big issue because usually funding doesn't go directly to youth-led initiatives or projects. So this seems to be different. So the program aims to create structural change by providing ambitious youth with financial resources and opportunities. So, and another initiative, this one is from Europe. Also last year, the European Commission launched the Youth for a Just Transition Toolkit, which is a guide for regional and local policymakers on how to involve young people in projects which relate to the Just Transition Fund. And it also provides 30 best practice examples of youth participation from all across Europe. And of course, I would like to mention one from Italy because I'm biased, which is called Next Energy. And this promotes young graduates and professionals by supporting the development of their innovative projects related to the energy transition. And it includes 2 initiatives. The first one, it's a call for ideas, which is aimed at young innovators, startups, and companies, which will be supported through an incubation program. And then we have a call for growth, which provides internships for young graduates at the national grid operator Terna. So this approach, I think it's interesting because it creates a link between the promotion of young professionals and also the development of innovative ideas to try and fast track the energy transition. So these are just some initiatives, and of course, there's still a long way to go. We need many more initiatives like this, and also such initiatives should receive more public attention because they can be great, but if no one knows about them, then it's useless. So hopefully this is just a start, but we need more initiatives like this. So then to wrap up, to conclude, so what we need is combined efforts among all stakeholders to remove barriers to youth access. And this means tangible support and not just words of praise from grown-ups and the pat on the back, no. Such efforts must focus on financial support, education, capacity building, and career entry and advancement opportunities. So I think to conclude my speech, the main takeaway, I think, is that youth participation can be simply a token, again, a box to tick. Because I think young people, I can include myself, we don't want to feel honored because we are allowed to sit at the big table with the grown-ups, as if we should be grateful just because we were granted a seat. Because young people, they are professionals, leaders, entrepreneurs who need support to both build up their skills and also design and implement innovative solutions that can fast track the energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for always voicing and pushing the criticals of youth role and renewable energy sectors. And yeah, I think I like your statement at last that how we could avoid youth involvement only seen as a token, and also your demands on more alternative and support also for the green jobs, for the incubators, for fostering the innovations for youth, and how the financial structures could be more sensitive to the youth needs, and also sometimes the way of youth organize themselves, because maybe it's different with the type of the organizations that we see now. Thank you, Teresa, and we will back to you again with some questions maybe from the participants. And now I would like to invite the third speakers in here. We have Kavin Kumar from Youth for Green Hydrogen India. And over the past few years, Kavin, many people say that green hydrogen has emerged as a game changers in the area of net zero energy experts. So maybe you could share your experience. What do you see from this movement, and how the youth engagement could support your visions for India transitioning towards low carbon economies. Yeah, the floor is yours, Kevin.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Aarti. Vanakkam, namaskar, hello, and bonjour. My name is Kavin Kumar Kandasamy, and I'll tell you a little about myself and the organization I represent. So I have the good fortune of running a few educational institutions in India. Let me just get this to a gallery view. Yeah, there you go. So which caters to about 7,000 students in India. Right now, anything in India is large in terms of volume because even a fraction of the population is, another country by itself. Now, at this point, as we were going about our entire educational, journey, we kept asking, what is the true purpose of education? Right? And the true purpose of education has always been to empower the future to live within the freedom of their own thoughts. Now, having said that, most often what happens is, we are just going by certain trends and policies that have been set up without the involvement of the youth itself and the very assurance of the future. Now, over the last 10, 20 years, the excessive nature of our greed has brought us to the situation where we are looking at so much of vulnerabilities. Now, everybody's been looking at wind energy, they've been looking at solar energy, they've been looking at every other forms of energy. But then we've never been able to put our point down and say, put our finger on it and say, all this is going to come together to really contribute in a meaningful sense for all types of industries. Let it be even heavy industries, let it be even, daily usage and even small batteries that can run your vehicles, right? And we've never come across anything as, suitable as green hydrogen. Now, I can go on and explain about what green hydrogen is, but before that, I'd like to explain what Youth for Green Hydrogen stands for. Right. So when we figured out that, hey, we have a greater understanding of green hydrogen right now, it can influence every industry out there, and it can even influence country policies. Two people came together and said, listen, we really need to get the power of youth involved in green hydrogen. And this started about 4 months back. And now we have associates and, the larger community has people from about 62 countries who believe green hydrogen is, a prospective solution to reducing the carbon footprint and sustaining our way of life as we know, right? So green hydrogen for us, I work very closely in the waste management space. We work very closely at the government level. At every single point, there is not a good understanding about green hydrogen yet. Even green hydrogen itself has not yet been classified properly as to what constitutes green hydrogen. So for those of you who do not know the difference between, let me tell you what, hydrogen is the most abundant available resource on Earth right now. And if it can power your home, if it can power your, let's say the steel factories, the cement factories, it can power your car, but at the same time, it can power your, your entire office building. That seems like a very, very acceptable energy form, right? So hydrogen is normally available as a combination of another element. It cannot survive by itself. It's a very volatile compound. So it needs to, that's why you have water, H2O, right? Where it's a combination of two different forms of, two atoms or two chemical compounds. So to mine hydrogen, there is an energy form needed to mine it, to break the hydrogen and then keep it as separate hydrogen itself. And when you use all forms of energy utilized towards getting only hydrogen from green renewable sources, that is called green hydrogen. So if you take it only from, let's say, solar, wind, and any other form of, renewable energy, that is considered green hydrogen. There is also gray hydrogen will still come out and be available to you. But what happens? You're using forms of energy that would leave an adverse effect on the carbon footprint as well. So that is exactly why we're focusing more on green hydrogen and not every other forms of blue or gray or every other type of hydrogen available at this point. Now, having said that, green hydrogen as a policy, India has launched a huge major policy document because of its intent to become a green hydrogen producer and exporter, not only for the domestic market. India is hoping that it can become an exporter in green hydrogen. And there is nothing stopping any country from having the same aspiration, because no country out there has advanced technologies that they can put themselves in the top and say, hey, we claim that we have the most advanced form of green hydrogen tech. So India, as a country which is still a developing country with a lot of aspirations, has put itself on the map saying we want to become a green hydrogen exporter. Now, India is a country made up of multiple small states. I mean, states that can constitute its countries itself. So you can say all of Australia is one state for us. And if you have 23 million population or 24, 25 million population in Australia, that is one state, which is one province in India. And there are about 35, 36 such provinces in India, right? So every state has come up with its own green hydrogen policy. So it's not only the center, because you start with the United Nations, they've come up with the intent document, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. You have the Paris Accord, where the intent has been converted into action, and all the national heads have really come in and said, hey, listen, we want to do something about climate change. We want to really reduce our carbon footprint. But all these guys have come back, and some of them have done something about it, and some countries have not even taken a step yet. And it's up to the civil society like us to wake up those leaders and say, it's time, you got to do something. In that case, India has taken one step forward and said, hey, we're going to launch a policy for green hydrogen. We're going to make sure that politics, policy, business, finance, and technology is going to come together. Now, what we at the Youth for Green Hydrogen have been promoting is we are asking people to understand what the concept of green hydrogen is. Understand the narrative of green hydrogen, saying that this is the future technology. Show a liking to the concept of green hydrogen, because at the end of the day, if you want to sell a good story, the narrative has to be strong. And the narrative requires multiple different stakeholders to come together to make it happen. And that's exactly what's happening with green hydrogen. Right now in India, every state which is coming up with its own green hydrogen policy, and I come from a state in India, I come from the state of Tamil Nadu in India, it is looking at producing enough energy that it can meet all of Europe's demands itself. That's the kind of potential available in one state in India if tapped properly. So now, we at Youth for Green Hydrogen are promoting this with all the youth organizations out there, asking them to reach out to the local representatives, talk to them, tell them that they should be looking at such a technology more actively, which could become the new norm. And that is exactly where Youth for Green Hydrogen is promoting itself. Now, I'll tell you a little about what we are doing actively as a personal company in that space. We've been working on carbon neutrality tech that tells you what your carbon footprint is at your house level, at your organization level, at your vehicle level, and helps you understand, because only if you know the kind of damage you're doing, or only if you have a score, would you be able to better your score. So we're not trying to come up with a tech that changes everything. We're trying to come up with a mirror that tells you, hey, Kevin, you've consumed or produced so much carbon footprint. That's what we are trying to do, right? And the other thing we're trying to do is create an entire green circle economy, from waste management to sustainable clothing. Most of the t-shirts today come from PET bottle waste. The industry is taking, approaches in that direction, where every industry is using a little bit of green components to make sure that they are contributing to the net zero vision, right? And that's the kind of effort that we are putting in. And I should also mention one other thing where, we're also promoting skills in green hydrogen. Youth for Green Hydrogen recently organized a major event in the central state of India called Madhya Pradesh, where thousands of people were, introduced to the concept of green skills. And, that's a separate sector. You have to call it a separate sector. And it's a sector that will be profitable, that will be sustainable for the next 20, 25 years. So you can live your life of being a green skilled worker. Green is profitable, green is sustainable. And in this case, if there's any energy that is acceptable in all different types of industries that we have a very good understanding of, and we still need a greater understanding of, that's green hydrogen. So that should give you a fair understanding of what we do here. I'm happy to answer any questions about this. And we know there are many companies from Malaysia that are exporting green hydrogen to Japan, to Indonesia. There's nothing stopping Indonesia from doing it. Every country has tremendous potential as long as there's renewable energy out there and there's water out there. I think if people come together, you will have access to renewable and sustainable forms of energy, and green hydrogen is one of them. So the floor is yours, Arti. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for enlightening us about the green hydrogen and also the importance of the green hydrogen to decarbonize our economy, especially from the industrial sectors. And I think your point is very interesting that you state about the importance of green skills on how we could prepare the people on it to have a required skill for these transitions. So this process could make sure that the transitions really give a benefit to the people that really need it, including us, youth, and also some of the examples that you see about innovations came from youth-led initiatives. So I also welcome again to all of the participants. If you want know more about the green hydrogens, or if you want know more about the movement itself, just put the questions first on the questions, and we could discuss it later on in the Q&A sessions. And now we have the fourth speakers. Now we already came from Italy, India, and now to Indonesia. We have in here Mas Rahmat Maulana Siddiq from Indonesia Global Justice. So, hi, Mas Maulana.
Hi, Arti, how are you?
Good. Yeah. So, yeah, we know that energy transitions came with also environmental, social, and governance trade-off. Yeah, Mas Maulana. For instance, it will drive demand for metals and maybe more mining. And I know in here you will talk more about the importance of a just and sustainable resource governance. Which is very critical for our renewable energy transitions. The floor is yours, Mas Maulana.
Yeah, thank you, Arti Indala, for the opportunity, and all good speakers before that mentioned a lot of powers to our struggling in the future, especially youth. Especially for the our of power to youth generation in the future. Before I convey the presentation, let me introduce myself. I'm Rahmat Maulana Siddiq from Indonesia for Global Justice. I will convey the topic of this webinar, just and sustainable resource governance in renewable energy for future generation. Indonesia for Global Justice is NGO from Indonesia and involved in this working group environment, climate justice and energy transition working group in C20. The next slide. Okay, in this slide, I want to convey that there is a Stockholm Declaration which has been adopted by countries in the world. The Stockholm Declaration is concerned about the overexploitation of natural resources without sustainability. So in this declaration, want to regulate it, sustainability issues in the natural resources sector in the world. To prevent exploitation, the results in environment, social, and human rights damage. There are several principles actually in the Stockholm Declaration talk about sustainability. Likely principle 2, 3, and principle 5 that mentioned in my presentation. I mentioned of the principles that was emphasized in principle 2 of the declaration emphasizes that the natural resources of the earth, including the air, water, land, flora, and fauna, and especially representative samples of a natural ecosystem must be safeguarded for the benefit to present and future generation through careful planning or management as appropriate. However, data show that after the Stockholm Declaration, the global demand for the non-renewable energy natural resources is increasing from years to years. And the next slide. Okay, this data show that from 1970 to 2017, the global demand for extracted material has tripled. And this figure is predicted to continue to increase in 2060. This has an environmental impact, namely more than 90% of global biodiversity loss and more than 90% of global water polluted and further increase greenhouse gas emission. Okay, the next slide. Okay, the demand for natural resources in producing renewable energy also continues to increase. This requires a sustainable governance policy on renewable energy. If the pattern and scheme used don't change, the policies still exploited resources and damage the environment. So renewable energy will not be realized, and its management is not sustainable. Okay, the next slide. Yeah, this data show that the demand for the left side and the right side is almost the same height. Cobalt and lithium are metals of high concern for future demands. This show that it's important to have sustainable management and assessment of environmental impacts and social impacts also, so that in the governance of policies on the issues, no one is threatened of harm. Not only that, there must be a responsibility scheme for unsustainable management that results in environmental damage. So the next slide. Okay, in this slide, I want to show in Indonesia, actually a lot of involved to the free trade agreement and bilateral investment treaty. There is a correlation to particular with the large number of Indonesia involved in various international trade agreements. Will hinder the process of energy transition policies in Indonesia, because in some FTA negotiations, such as Indonesia EU CEPA negotiation, they are still discussing about the export of natural resource based on raw material and are included in spirit chapter, especially in the raw material chapter in Indonesia EU CEPA negotiation. Of course, this pattern will become an obstacle in the governance of unsustainable energy transition policies in Indonesia. The several trade agreement must be cancelled that will exploit this natural and unsustainable resource. Okay, the next slide. Okay, this slide shows the impact of unsustainable management of mining resources will have an impact on three aspects, like environment resulting in contaminated water from heavy metals waste, then contamination of agriculture land, and deep sea mining resource at sea seem to have greater reserves than on land. This show the importance of conducting an analysis of environmental impact on it. In addition, there are also a social impact like land conflicts in mining area with local communities and indigenous peoples, and the privation of the people's living space due to mining and increasing poverty in the community. And there are also economic impact like loss of livelihood due to land clearing, exploration, or worse pollution and poor working condition, and also exploitation of child labor as happening in Africa. Yeah. Okay, the next slide. Okay, for the reason slide in this slide, it is important to encourage the management of the energy transition to based on human rights. There are several alternative policies proposed, like obtain free, prior, and informed consent for any extractive project affecting indigenous peoples' land use, community-led governance and decision making process, bottom-up approach to research governance, and also don't open exploitation space through international trade agreement policies that still provide access to natural resources exploitation, such as Indonesia EU CEPA negotiation, Indonesia Canada CEPA negotiation, and other bilateral investment agreement. And also a need for assessment of impact of human rights in every energy transition policy to ensure that there are no human rights violation in energy policies. Okay, thank you. That's all from me. Back to you, Arti.
Thank you, Mas Maulana. A very strong and critical message, and also remind us, I think, in here that the energy transition need to be done with the prerequisites of sustainable resource minings and sustainable resource governance, and how the resources needs to be safeguarded for the future generations, and also the importance of intergenerational justice. So thank you for all of the speakers that already shared their thoughts. Later on, we will also hear the remarks, the closing remarks from our colleagues in here. But before that, I would like to open the floor for the Q&A discussions. So if you have some questions for all of the panels or for the specific persons or the speakers, you could raise your hand in these buttons, or if you want to put on the chats is also okay. So let me check first. Is there any questions from the participants? Okay, I think there's still a quiet forum. Maybe I could start with the questions, and maybe later on, if the participants want to join me on give not necessarily a question, but it could be also the feedbacks or comments is also welcome. Okay, I have one questions in here. It's from Dose or Togo. It's for you, Mas Maulana. The question is, does Indonesia you have solar renewable energy cook stove? Maybe you could share a bit about this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dose. Thank you for the question. Actually, in Indonesia, the policies. Okay. The policies about the solar renewable energy is still not there is no still contradictive, because the policies still contradicted about the implemented and with the policies. In the policies still mention renewable energy to build solar energy, but the implemented still a lot of violation of human rights, and then also land conflict in the mining sector to build solar energy like that. So actually there is policies, but not implemented as a usual implemented in the field. So still contradicted.
Okay, thank you, Mas Maulana. So there is a lot of improvement that need to be done, especially in the implementation level of the policy itself in Indonesia. So let me check. Okay, I have Nisans in here, raised hands. Hi, Nisans. Go ahead with your questions.
Hi, Aarti. My question to the speakers is whether green energy prices will match conventional energy prices, or will it be expensive?
Okay, maybe I could ask first to Kevin to answer about this, and maybe later on, if the other speakers want to jump in, just if you could add.
Well, over time, solar energy in terms of production of the solar cells itself, they've dropped significantly. And speaking about green hydrogen at this point, earlier on we were looking at green hydrogen per kg at a cost of about $8 or $10, but right now it's the new electrolyzers and everything, they're bringing it down to about lesser than $2, and the idea is to bring it lesser than $1. And then it becomes already at $2. It becomes a very strong contender to conventional energy. Point. I think it is important to understand. One, you can look at it from a price point of view. Two, you can look at it from the environmental benefit point of view. And three, can I just say this is the most sustainable form of energy out there. Right, oil is going to come to an end. Everything else is going to come to an end, but renewable energy is going to be around for a long time. So prices apart, we should continue to invest in it. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Maybe for the other speakers, Teresa, you want to add some things regarding this? Okay, or maybe Nisans, you have a follow-up questions for this, or maybe Silas, if you want to add also.
Yes, sure, Aarti. I don't mind. I think Kevin has already done a very good job in sharing about the how important how the pricing for the green hydrogen would drastically reduce. But I have a very quick comment for the last question that was asked to Rahmat from our friend Dose. And of course, when he asked about the Indonesian policies on solar energy, I think Dose, of course, at this very stage, what I understand of our readings from Italy, Indonesia, and India, there has been drastic, not very much usage of solars to say, but if you see solar in Indonesia, specifically in areas and regions, if I'm not wrong to say, in the upper part of Indonesia near Skilong, there have been quite panels that are coming up and setting up, because also having close proximity to sun with that direction as well. And of course, the government of Indonesia, well, I met Honorable Tasrif in Spain. He was very proactive in suggesting that by 2030, we have plans to install large-scale solar panels to generate 5.3 gigawatts of power. Of course, at this very moment, the solar in Indonesia is quite expensive, if I could say that, which around about 15 to 21 million per kilowatt. But if we see in the next 5 or 7 years, if this energy transition goes as expected, the cost would reduce by drastically 100%. And that would be a great achievement that Indonesia could have specifically on solar to say. So yeah, I hope that answers your question as well.
Thank you, Silas, and hopefully the implementation is going along in line with the target itself. So we have another questions in here. Omobola Echo, go ahead if you. Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Omo.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we hear you well.
Okay. It's not, I don't actually have a question. I just want to give some remarks, some comments. I just want to really support first I would like to appreciate this initiative and the discussion, and then I would like to support what Teresa, highlighted during our speech. She highlighted the fact that there needs to be partnership between school, vocation training, and institution. I would like to also say that we youth, we are doing a lot, and I must really commend our effort, but we also need more synergy, and we need to partner, and collaborate across all level across all level. I know that this summit is talking about energy transition. We can also collaborate across all sector of climate advocacy, including tree planting, upcycle, plastic waste upcycling and all that. And then we need to build synergy to create more ripple effect across different countries, including Africa. And I'm from Nigeria. So I would like to also say, if we can also look into how to promote sustainability during conflict. There are so many situations of conflict in Nigeria, and also the one we're currently facing in the Russian-Ukraine situation. We can also look into how we can also promote sustainability in situation of conflict. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amobela, for your remarks and your reminding also how the importance of the collaborations between countries and between sectors also, because now we couldn't tackle this alone, and we need to stop to working each other. Thank you. And I see also before that Hawa is raising hand, but it's gone now. Hawa, do you want to jump in this?
Yeah, I was saying maybe I shouldn't ask the question, but I was just thinking as the other gentleman, somebody else asked about implementation, and I was wondering, what is the problem with implementation? Is it at the policy level, at the government level, at the people level? Because coming from Sierra Leone, I mean, I'm thinking, I'm so interested in the green energy, but I know for generations, even up to now in Sierra Leone, women are cooking on the open pit on 3 stones and wood. This is something, it's part of our life, and sometimes, we come with great development initiatives that directly impact the economic and personal health of people in the global south. So I'm wondering, maybe Sailesh or Kevin, some of the people who have spoken, Teresa, how will we bring this to the local level, to the village in Sierra Leone or Malaysia or India, where they may not be able to afford solar paneling. Maybe the government can do it, maybe not. So how are we introducing this idea? Because the people, if I don't have food to eat, I may not even care about human rights. Over to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thank you, Hawa, for your questions, also triggering questions. So I invite for the speakers who want to go first, maybe responding these things. Maybe Teresa, you want to go ahead? Oh, sorry.
No, Teresa, if you...
Okay, okay, Teresa, go ahead. And then after that,
Teresa first. No, I'll wait for Teresa.
Ladies first. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because there are more concrete problems, as you say, to think about. I think that at the very beginning, I think the public investment is a way to go. I mean, I think that first we need this first start, like this catalyzer. I think that public money has to be there, because it has to, then, private investments would follow afterwards. But I think that the government has to make first effort, because of course it has more power and it can make riskier investments. It can encourage more investors later. So I think that's the first, policy issue. Of course, when it comes to developing countries, they need help from developed countries. And I mean, I come from Italy, and so I can blame ourselves. I can blame Europe and the US and all developing countries for just, I think they criticize maybe developing countries because they don't make enough efforts or because they are blocking progress on some issues, but they should look at themselves, honestly, because they actually blocking progress on other issues like public climate finance or loss and damage finance. So it's on them, I think, at first, because they have the funds and also the resources to make this first step. And I think they could encourage more investors later on. So I think it's a matter of governments first and developed countries government that should take responsibility, because it's not just, I think, the moral thing to do, but it's also convenient for them from an economical point of view, because it's business. We can build partnerships with other countries, and it's not just, we're not talking about morals, because I think no one in governments care about it. But it's about business opportunities for everyone, and so they should start considering these and build, even business sound enterprises, instead of still trying to be attached to this old world of the fossil fuels, and which doesn't make economic sense at some point, because as we see now, fossil fuels are becoming too expensive, and it would be even worse now with the Ukraine crisis and of course sanctions to Russia. They are becoming too, like, the global supply is always too small now. It's getting smaller and smaller, and I think that's why prices will get higher. So it doesn't make sense to invest on fossil fuels anymore. That's my my take. Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. And maybe Kevin, you want to jump in this?
Yes, just sorry about Teresa first, and going on to what Hava asked. Of course, there are priorities, and the motivation comes from the hierarchy of priorities, right? If you don't have food to eat, why would you worry about a problem as that is not directly affecting you now? First point I'd like to make is we live in a very globalized world. Salish, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we could hear you well.
So you were looking up like that. So yeah, sorry. There was a little bit of blur that came in my ears and I thought everybody couldn't hear me. So we live in a very globalized world where the problem in one country transcends into the other country in no time. And global warming's, in America is Sierra Leone's problem, right? Global warming in India is still Sierra Leone's problem. It's not something that cannot transcend boundaries and borders. So we live in a very, unified, conscientious world where one problem in one part of the world is going to come down to the other part of the world. Now, of course, again, you can't communicate this back to the wonderful ladies in Sierra Leone who still cook on 3 stones, right? For them, it is still a way of life. But I think the narrative, I'm going to give you what happened in India. The government took a very, 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 very strong call to move away from traditional wood-based stoves, and they million people were given these subsidies over a span of about 4 years. And a lot of ladies who would, end up with inhaling all these poisonous gases coming out of these smokes, cooking out of these wood-based fuel, they all moved to the gas. And once they got a taste of that and how good it is for their health, the narrative came together. And then they said, you know what? We like this. This is a better way to cook. And this is a priority because I can see the difference between cooking with wood-based fuel in here. So, the narrative is the most important bit, and I'm sure in your larger expertise and wisdom over years, you would have seen it. But I think if we can tell the story well and we can tell it in a compelling fashion, everybody will pay attention. And it also comes down to who's telling the story. And if the youth are telling the story, then there is more mileage to the story, and we can go a long way in making sure that the story is heard. So that's all I can tell you, but I don't see there's never a perfect answer to this. So they're just instances we can take inspiration from.
Thank you, Kevin. And also in here on chat, Jose also given an opinion that NGOs and the important role of local governments and local SDGs multilateral committees or SDGs local centers. So we could set up this kind of system at the local level and could talk more about this. So yeah, because we are running out of time. Sorry, everyone. And the participants, it's 7 minutes to the end of the sessions. We still have one sessions for the closing remark from Silas. So maybe I see Silas also raised hands. So continuing this questions, maybe you could also continue with your remarks and we could close this webinar then after your sessions. Floor is yours, Silas.
Thank you so much, Aarti. But if I may have the permissions of the working group, we also have just to share with you, we also have Lisa, who happens to be the coordinator for this very working group. And Lisa, before I deliver the closing remarks, since you're here, would you like to maybe share a word or two? And then I'm happy to take the floor.
Yeah, hello, Melissa. I think I see Lisa also in here in the participants. Hello, Melissa. Or maybe, oh yeah, the mic is on.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we hear you clearly. It's very good.
Yeah. So apologize, I cannot turn on my video. I've just finished my other meeting, but I've been listening to all of you, and I would like also to thank the speakers and our keynote speaker from the UN. And yeah, we hope that this is just like the beginning for us to have a international or global discussion, and hopefully this will strengthen our cooperation, I mean, in terms of the G20 cooperation, because as we are representing C20, we, at the beginning, we did not want to limit the collaboration just within the members of G20. So I can see from the list of participants, there are so many participants from African continent. So I'm really glad to have everyone here. And also, I've heard like so many inputs from the participants on the chat box. So again, thanks a lot for the speakers and everyone, and also the coordination done by the team here, and also the team from I've heard that it's not only by the our team, but also it's the collaboration with the India and Italians team. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, I'll just stop here and I'll just return it to Aarti or Sailesh.
Thank you so much,
Melissa. Okay, continue, Sailesh. Sorry.
I will not take the role of your moderation.
No, this is very informal space. It's okay to share to each other. Go ahead, Sailesh.
Fantastic. So I think how you stand as an inspiration to all of us at Youth of India. And while you accepted this humble invitation to be part of this C20 Troika dialogue, I think what you really raised up about villages, about the global South, and also about localizing to the African nations. I think these are the very three aspects that with your leadership and mentorship that we also came up with. Back when we had an event on June 5th on the World Environment Day, where more than, which you of course, you also participated. This very fact on how can we localize energy transition, solar and green hydrogen came up. And you would be amazed to hear the kind of innovation that is happening by the institutes of Indian Institute of Technology, or also to some of our friends in Spain in making green energy, in making solar panels, in making green hydrogen localized at the villages. Of course, this is a challenge that we may face at this very present time, But while we, as Kevin was mentioning, we were in the central part of India, a very dynamic bureaucrat came up and said that there are 23,000 villages councils in India, and we are going to make every 23,000 villages council solar panel. And it was because of his vision and his leadership that you very well said, policy, people, and politics have to come together. And I think when we heard that, that really made us believe. And in the past, I am so glad to have friends like Omobola joining in, Umar and Dose. We were amazed that it was not, I am sorry, but it was not Asia, it was not Europe, but it was Africa who made their first commitment to Youth for Green Hydrogen. The government of Namibia said, we are all there for youth leadership in green hydrogen on a very first event on June 5th. And that was the announcement that happened. So of course, it is not Asia, it is not Europe, it is not Latin America, it is Africa. So I think the potential that lies in the African region, specifically for energy transition and green hydrogen is fabulous. Aarti, you would be amazed to hear, while the group of Youth for Green Hydrogen had this first very preparatory meeting with the African group for the Youth for Green Hydrogen, representatives from 15 countries came up and said that we want to take the co-ownership and leadership in driving green energy. And it was all because that Hawa made that channel and creation happen. So I think a lot of potential lies with Global South, Indonesia, India, and also the other regions that we could really look at. And then localizing to the villages would be important. So that's a very quick comment, Hawa, that I had on your thoughts. Yeah. So as now that I understand that I have, oh, this is very interesting. I will read that out for you, Hawa. Youth in Africa are ready, willing, and able. So let's do it together. Of course, more than happy to contribute. And you would be amazed, Hawa, that the region of the Maharashtra, the western part of India, and the African continent has a lot of similarities. And there are research papers suggesting that the soil of this land and that land has been interconnected. So I think, of course, there lies a lot of opportunities again. So as I understand that I have been given a responsibility to deliver the closing remarks, I would say that this is a very, very historic day that we had this crucial Troika event of the G20 presidency led by the C20 Working Group of Environment, Climate Justice, and the Energy Transition. Why? Because yesterday, the organization that Hawa represents, the United Nations, went for an adoption of recognizing access to a healthy environment as a universal human right. And lo and behold, 161 countries voted for it. So while we talk about energy transition, while we talk about climate justice and environment, this very validation by the United Nations in making accessibility of healthy environment as a human right is very crucial. So Hawa, thank you so much that the organization that you represent stood up for such a crucial impact. Before we go on to say, it was very interesting while I had a chance to meet Honorable Minister A. Tasrif back in Spain from Indonesia. And I said this to him amidst the world leaders on stage, that this year G20 presidency lies in the hand of youth-centric leadership. While I said that, now I realize that this G20 presidency, Hawa, made two historic decisions. First, it became the first G20 ever, or the C20, I mean, I would say the C20 ever, to include the disabilities, right, and people of disabilities in the entire discourse, which happened yesterday in the policy meeting as well in Indonesia. And second, this became the first such youth or the G20 presidency to have the virtual presentation or visit to the Y20 as well. An expo that even Hawa sitting in New York can walk into the Y20 or the G20 forum, and it's just a virtual link. So I think thank you so much for all of you for making that happen. Teresa, your remarks have been beautiful. Of course, youth participation can't simply be a token. And how it is so very crucial when you talk about the essential leadership of young people through civil society organizations. Rahmat really helped us look at various aspects of how energy could be how fossil fuel could be a challenge. And while we look at everything holistically, it is through green hydrogen that we have been advocating what Kevin spoke about so passionately and energetically, that we started with 2. And now more than 65, 70 countries have joined in this collaboration. Young people, universities, educational institutions, governments are coming up to participate in green hydrogen. Yes, of course, the challenge lies, will green hydrogen be accessible? Will green hydrogen be economical? But did we not do that with our cell phones or maybe internet back then? How economical were cell phones? How economical even were solar panels? And today, India, while leading this solar panel movement, has made solar panels so accessible, so economical for all. And I think this would be from the dialogue, from the process of dialogue to the process of being a fashion, then to becoming accessible for everyone. And this process has been there for every change and transition that we talk about. So I think with this, it is so very essential that we rely on my friend and elder brother mentioned, on policy, on politics, on business, on finance and technology. When these 5 elements come together, we are so assured that the energy transition that we have all committed to come together in leading it would be a reality to say. And with this, I thank everyone at C20 working group, at the C20 Secretariat, Lisa and Sicha specifically, and Ima for making us look so more favorable with a beautiful poster. And to all of you, how are you specifically for taking a time out, despite your schedule that you have with your engagements with the mother. And it was so cute to say. I mean, it was fabulous. I think now when I go back home, even if I get a little irritated sometimes, I will remember what you said, that even at 58, I asked my mother and my mommy, what message would you have for youth of India or for young people of the world? So with this, thank you so much once again to everyone. Tesima kasih banyak. Ciao, dhanyawad. Om, shanti, 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 om.
Thank you, Salis, for the beautiful remarks and the closing remarks to end of our session today. And thank you all for all of the speakers who already shared your insights, your hopes, and hopefully with continuing to talk about this in many events, in many opportunities, the government leaders will hear our concerns and also take the concrete actions. Or hopefully the participants today from here today also could support us to amplify our discussions tonight to their network and their surroundings. And so that's is all for today's sessions. On the behalf of the C20 Environment, Climate Justice and Energy Transition Working, I would like to thank the speakers and attendees. And hopefully this is only the beginning and we could have many extra sessions together in upcoming months, especially approaching the G20 leaders. See you everybody, and thank you so much for your participations. Good night. Good evening.
I'm sorry, could we take a group picture together, maybe everyone?
Yes.
About that. With that moderator for the photo pictures. Okay, everyone, please open your video. And Aya or Siha, could you help us to screen the pictures?
Yes. Is there any other one who wants to open their camera?
To open the videos, maybe we could wait for a while.
Okay.
Okay. I will do the count.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Abiola is still opening the video. Let's start again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, is that good, Siha?
Yeah,
You
thank
got
you so
it?
much.
Okay, thank you everyone. Have
Thank
a nice
you.
day and
Thank
see
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.